We've got Democratic strategist Michael Starr Hopkins actually not on set. Conservative commentator Gina Loudon not on set, also a member of Trump's re-election advisory board. And now finally to chief strategist from Bell Point Asset Management, David Nelson, on set to help explain sort of why we're seeing this big reaction in the markets today, off 227 points, David, with financials basically looking like they're going to see their worst day in about 3 months, their worst one-day slide. What's behind it?
You had a thermonuclear detonation in North Korea over the weekend.
That's what it's North Korea then. That's really what
I think it's North Korea, certainly. Look, what's different here is that this could actually be economic. And I think over the last 50 years, investors have understood that buying the news has been more profitable than selling the news. Today, it's a little different because now we're talking about trade sanctions with literally any country, any of our trading partners that are doing business with North Korea. So you'd be surprised to find out that actually Brazil, Germany fall into that group. But China, of course, is the big kahuna there. And if they don't cut them off at the knees, then the only other option is obviously military.
So the China thing is important because I just want to explain, the viewers probably heard me say this before, but we have not done what we need to do or can do, or we haven't even, I would argue, scratched the surface of what should be done regarding China. Now, President Trump has indicated he's willing. The question is everyone else in the administration, is the country willing to do what's needed, Gina, to fire back at China? And I mean that economically speaking, because China holds the key to us dealing with North Korea. If we say to China, you know, we're not going to play ball on this, and suddenly we threaten economic sanctions, it's a whole different ballgame.
Well, I think that's why America knows it can relax in the fact that, I mean, to the degree you can ever relax in such a politically and internationally tense situation, Trish, but we do have a businessman who understands negotiation in ways that perhaps no president in recent history ever has. And I don't think that he takes that responsibility lightly, and I think that he understands it and its complexities perhaps in ways that others might not have in our past. And so I think that we can rest assured in that. But I also think
but that also makes some people nervous, right? I mean, that is what's making the market nervous right now, which, you know, I say fine, because, hey, I'd much rather cost us all something economically in terms of our trade with China than wind up costing lives. Because North Korea is out of control. As I look at treasuries right now, maybe we can show the 10-year yield. Yields are down, treasuries are up. This is, of course, affecting banks, financial stocks, David, because it's all intertwined. You're seeing this nervousness in the market, all as a result of North Korea. We can talk about DACA and what that means overall for markets and economy, but it is a biggie, right? That possibly we're going to get much tougher with China.
I think certainly the move into treasuries, the move into gold, those are safe haven trades, and that actually affects banks pretty hard. So that's part of the rhetoric here. And the bigger story here is
2%. I mean, on the 10-year. I mean, 2.7%.
You break 2%. It's a big concern here. But at some point, our trading partners have to understand that Kim is not just a threat to the United States. They are a clear and present danger to the entire civilized world. So if they don't join us in this solution, what's the alternative? Ambassador Bolton on this very show is talking about what some of the alternatives are.
Well,
I'd much rather go down the economic route than that.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with you. And Ambassador Bolton, if you haven't seen what he has to say, I recommend you check it out online. He said it on this program, and in fact, just on Sunday, on Maria's Sunday Morning Futures with me, he said it as well. Basically, that we are getting increasingly close to the military option. He thinks there are no more, Michael, sanctions that we can impose, despite the fact that Nikki Haley is saying she wants more people to sign on, more countries to sign on board with sanctions. He thinks those days are over, that we're looking at a military possibility. I say don't take military off the table, but let's exhaust at least what we can do as far as putting the screws to China to actually get them to get rid of this guy in North Korea.
Absolutely. I mean, we absolutely have to exhaust all options when it comes to diplomacy. But I'm not one to say that we should take the military option off the table, because it's something that should always be on the table.
Good.
But I think
I'm glad to hear you say that.
Absolutely. I think most Democrats would come out and say we should keep the military option on this table because we need to make sure
Really?
that...
Because I think a lot of Democrats are actually accusing the president of being irresponsible with North Korea. They don't like his rhetoric.
Those are two different things.
They don't like those comments, etc.
Those are two different topics. I think that the president has been entirely too reckless with his tweets, with his attacks on South Korea. I think that's true. But I also do think that we need to keep the military on the coast.
I don't understand. If you're saying we really have the military option on the table, why not use the rhetoric, Gina Loudon, to make sure that they know we have the military option on the table?
Well, I mean,
I don't have a problem. I'd like Gina to weigh in. I don't have a problem with that. Fire and fury, and use whatever else you need in terms of
I think you have to recognize the fact that they are in the nuclear club.
Go ahead, Gina.
The Democrats passed this ball down the court and put the president in the position he's in now. And we see this again with DACA. I mean, all of the things that the president is dealing with now are because the last administration refused to do anything. The president has no option except to deal with it from a social media perspective.
We've been dealing with North Korea for 20-plus years.
The elitists in the media refuse to actually carry his actual message. We see it today in the twisting of the words of the president on DACA. What are his options? His communication directly with the American people is appreciated by the American people.
Well, every president since Reagan bears responsibility for this. Let's not lose sight of that fact that it was passed on to each president prospectively. President Trump is now faced with some very tough decisions, and that will likely define his presidency in the next days, weeks, and months.
It's a big, big deal. As far as DACA goes, look, it's going to be a big political issue. It's always been, frankly, Michael, a political issue, which is troublesome because it seems pretty basic to me. You know, your country, you got borders. And, you can't just go around by executive order and decide that someone gets to stay and someone has to go.
Yeah, this is not only a political issue, but it's a moral issue as well. And the president's failing to show leadership. President Obama...
Wait a second. How is he failing to show leadership when he's kicking this back to Congress because we want to do things constitutionally? We want to do it in the right way. Congress needs to be the one to make the determining decision on this. And it's a huge opportunity. Let's not forget, Michael, a huge opportunity to actually start to do something meaningful on immigration reform.
So I agree with you. There were two opportunities in both 2010 and 2013 for Republicans to sign the DREAM Act. They didn't. President Obama then used the executive order to have a stopgap so that there could be certainty in the markets. And now what we have is President Trump ending DACA without any plan moving forward, jumping from one crisis to another, a crisis which Republicans like Speaker Ryan, Orrin Hatch, businesses like Google and Facebook have all said
I get a little more faith in the system, I guess, than you. I don't like the idea of my president being able to go off like a king and sign all these executive orders. I like the idea that it's
the Muslim ban was.
If it's such a star-spangled good idea, then why can't Congress get it done?
I have to leave it there, guys. The Muslim ban, the whole other conversation for another day. You got to protect your country, of course. We're going to leave it there. David, Michael, Gina.